So taking on James Baldwin, obviously very exciting but quite monumental as well. So how did you balance that weight of his legacy with your own personal vision for the film?
That was, to be honest, and people often ask me that question, or people ask me that question, and they frame it as the pressure of making a movie in the wake of Moonlight. But that wasn't the most acute pressure I felt. The pressure was, as you say, adapting James Baldwin, who I think is a genius and just extraordinary. And so it was interesting. James Baldwin was a novelist. Barry Jenkins is a filmmaker, and so I think for the adaptation, my voice had to come to the forefront. And it was an interesting process of going through the drafts, and every time I did a rewrite, I feel like it got further away from the voice of Mr. Baldwin and closer to my voice, which I was hoping to speak through the voice of Tish.
And on that, speaking through the voice of Tish, obviously through James Baldwin, he is a man, speak from perspective of women, of a woman, and then you follow that same route with the film. Did you see any challenges in that, or how did you approach that?
It was the most challenging thing about the process, I'll be honest, but it was also what was so invigorating about it. Moonlight is such a male point of view, and then to move to this project, which is such a female point of view, it was challenging. I'm not a woman, James Baldwin's not a woman, and so I had to learn to check my directorial ego and listen to the actors, which is difficult because, not difficult to listen to the actors, but typically an actor comes to you looking for guidance. And if an actor asks you a question about the character, you give the answer. But in this case, if Regina or Kiki or Ingenue or any of the women had a question about their characters, it was incumbent upon me to ask a question back because I can't tell you legitimately, what this experience is. So let's go into your experience, and I think that'll be more direct and align more with the characters.
Yeah, it's a really collaborative process.
It had to be. It absolutely had to be. And some of those things yielded the most amazing fruit. There's a sequence in the film where Regina King, as the character Sharon, goes to Puerto Rico, and in the book, in the source material, she's putting on and taking off a shawl. And Regina said to me very early in the process, I think as a woman, if it was a wig, as a black woman, that would be an image that I think is more direct and more visceral. And, I've never worn a wig, and so what do I know? Yeah. And so we talked about it, and I said, okay, cool, it's a wig now. And I'm glad I listened to her because I think it's one of the most engaging, most visceral moments in the entire film.
Yeah, I agree. One of my other favourite moments was the scene between Fonny and Daniel, obviously breaking down that mask of what it means to be a man and showing that vulnerability and emotion. How did you approach that moment, and what do you want the audiences to essentially take from that?
Yeah, it's an interesting moment in the film. This is a movie comprised of a lot of satellite characters. Tish and Fonny are the main characters, and these other characters are kind of orbiting them in a certain way. And every now and then, it was important to me to cede the floor to some of these satellite characters to embody the more intellectual ideas we were getting at in the script. And Brian Tyree Henry, Mr. Paperboy, who plays the character Daniel, does a great job of basically living out the process by which I feel like men, or black men in particular, but I'm sure all men deal with this, where they can feel comfortable enough to reveal their true selves. You like to think that trauma is very acute. You hit your toe with a nail and a hammer, and that hurts, and then 3 weeks later, you forget about the pain. But these other kinds of trauma are always with us, and I think Brian and Stefan in that scene are negotiating the space to reveal the actual trauma. I think it's the ways in which myself and Mr. Baldwin were trying to show how it's not just about the time these men spend inside the system and how it affects them, but about the reverberations of that trauma and how it lives on in the families generations and generations on.
Brilliant. You tell stories so brilliantly. What is one story or
your opinion?
My opinion, yes. In my opinion, you do so. What is the one story that you're dying to tell?
I feel like every time I go out and make a film, it's a story I'm dying to tell. I had like a bucket list of things I wanted to do as an artist. I wanted to make a movie about where I'm from, and that was Moonlight. I wanted to adopt my favorite author, that's Beale Street. I also wanted to make a movie that was about American slavery, and that's going to become the Underground Railroad. So I think, step by step, bit by bit, attacking those questions. And what I love about being a filmmaker right now is, I'm not stationary. And so hopefully, through speaking to people like yourself, speaking to audiences, I'll reveal these blind spots of things that I didn't realize I wanted to do, that I want to do in the future.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
Me.
It's a pleasure.
It's been great.